The signal arrived on Earth without sound, without light, and without warning. It slipped through layers of deep space sensors, like a whisper that refused to die. For 3 days, it repeated itself, steady and broken at the same time, as if someone far away was still hoping that someone else would listen. At the lunar listening station, the first person to notice the pattern was Haniel Rin. She had worked long shifts before, staring at lines of data that usually meant nothing. Most signals were dust, old radio noise, or echoes of dead stars. This one was different. It was too clean to be natural, and too damaged to be recent. Haniel leaned closer to her screen, her dark eyes tired but sharp. She slowed the playback and filtered out the background radiation. The pattern remained. It repeated every 14 minutes, always ending the same way, with a sharp drop that felt less like an error and more like a scream cut short. "This isn't debris," she said quietly. Her voice carried across the control room. Commander Wu Il, who was overseeing the night shift, turned from another console. He walked over, hands behind his back, calm as always. "What are you seeing?" he asked. HNEUL brought the data up on the main display. "It's structured. Not human. Not anything in our records. And it's old. Very old." Wu Il studied the screen. "How old?" "At least 2,000 years, she replied. "Maybe more. But it's still transmitting." That made him frown. Signals like that should have faded long ago. For something this ancient to still be repeating meant one thing. Someone had built it to last. Someone had built it because they believed help might come, no matter how long it took. Within an hour, the station sent a priority alert to Earth Command. Admiral Sung Du received the message while standing in the observation hall above Earth's unified fleet headquarters. From where he stood, the planet filled the window, blue and calm, hiding the noise and conflict of billions of lives below. He was a tall man with silver beginning to touch his hair, his uniform neat but worn from years of service. He read the report once. Then again. "Bring the analyst here," he said. HNEUL arrived 2 hours later, her uniform still creased from rushing. She stood straight, even though her legs ached. Facing Admiral Sung Du was not something that happened often, and never without reason. "You found the signal," Sung Du said. "Yes, sir." "Explain it to me in simple words." Haniel took a breath. "It's a distress call. Not a message, not a greeting. A call for help. It was sent by a non-human civilization. They were under attack when it began." Sung Do's eyes did not leave her face. "Are they still alive?" She hesitated. "I don't know. But the signal hasn't stopped." The room was silent for a moment. Outside the window, cargo ships moved like slow insects around Earth's orbit. "Where is it coming from?" The Admiral asked. HNEUL brought up a star map. A red marker blinked far beyond known trade routes, past regions marked as unstable or simply unknown. "That far?" Sung Du said, "Yes, sir." He nodded slowly. "Thank you. You may go." After she left, Sung Du remained by the window. He had seen many wars in his lifetime. He had seen humanity fight itself, then learn, slowly and painfully, to stand together. Earth's war fleet existed because of those lessons. It was strong, disciplined, and feared. But it had never answered a call like this. The council meeting that followed was tense dot screens lit up with faces from across Earth's major regions. Politicians, military leaders, and civilian observers spoke in turns. Some argued the signal could be a trap. Others said it was not Earth's problem. A few questioned whether humanity had the right to interfere at all. Captain Yoon Seok listened in silence from his seat along the outer ring. He was younger than most in the room, his expression controlled, but his jaw tight. When his turn came to speak, he stood. "We built the fleet to protect Earth," he said. "That is true. But we also built it because we promised ourselves we would be better than what we were." Several faces turned toward him. "If someone sent a call into the dark and hoped for help," Yoon Seok continued, "and we ignore it because it's inconvenient or dangerous, then all this power means nothing." The room erupted in argument. Sung-du raised his hand, and the noise faded. "We will vote," the admiral said. The decision passed by a narrow margin. Earth would answer. Orders spread through the fleet like fire. Dockyards came alive. Massive ships awakened from standby, their hulls marked with the scars of old battles and careful repairs. Crews were recalled from leave. Supplies were loaded. Weapon systems were checked, then checked again. On the flagship, a carrier known as the F's Horizon, Yoon Seok walked the command deck. The ship was enormous, built to carry fighters, soldiers, and hope in equal measure. Its walls hummed with quiet power. Engineer Ariam Nari stood near an open panel, tools in hand. She glanced up as the captain passed. "Jump drives are stable," she said. "As stable as experimental tech can be." Yoon Seok gave a thin smile. "That's reassuring." She shrugged. "They'll hold. They always do." In the hangar bays, pilots prepared their craft. Rin Yuna ran a hand along the nose of her fighter, her movements calm and familiar. She had flown combat missions before, but never into the unknown. "This time feels different," she said to no one in particular. Above them all, Admiral Sung-du watched the fleet assemble from the command tower. Hundreds of ships formed up, their lights blinking in careful patterns. This was not a show of strength meant to impress rivals. This was a promise made real. At exactly dawn over the Pacific, the fleet moved. One by one, the ships engaged their drives. Space bent, light stretched, and Earth's war fleet vanished from the cradle of humanity, heading toward a signal that had waited centuries to be heard, far away, in a broken system filled with debris and silent worlds. The ancient transmitter continued its lonely call. It did not know who was coming. It only knew it had not been forgotten. And for the first time in a very long time, the dark between stars began to answer back. The fleet moved through space that had never seen human eyes. Stars appeared like scattered dust, some burning with colors that the sensors could not name. Every jump corridor they entered bent reality, stretching light and time. The pilots held steady, their hands tight on controls, their eyes scanning the unknown. Commander Woo Il walked the bridge of the horizon, his pace slow but deliberate. He checked each station, spoke briefly to officers, and nodded when he found the crew focused and ready. The fleet was not just a machine. It was people, lives bound together by training and purpose. And Woo Il understood that every life mattered. Engineer Ariam Nari worked with her team in the engine room. The jump drives made strange hums and vibrations that some said could make you dizzy if you listened too long. Ariam ignored the discomfort. She adjusted flux stabilizers, monitored energy outputs, and ensured that the ship would survive the corridors ahead. "It's holding," she said to herself. "It's holding." Nearby, Captain Yoon Seok received updates from the fleet. Sensors reported gravitational anomalies, asteroid fields that moved like living things, and pockets of energy that seemed almost alive. Each problem required quick thinking and trust in human skill. "Steady, everyone," Yoon Seok said. "We've trained for this." Pilot Rin Yuna tightened her grip on her controls as the fighter danced through a field of floating rocks. Each rock was massive, but the ship moved with precision. She had flown in combat before, but nothing prepared her for the feeling of being so far from known space. With only instinct and training to guide her. "We're clear," Rin Yuna reported, voice calm despite the adrenaline. "Corridor stable for next jump." The fleet pushed on. Days passed in a blur. Sensors picked up faint energy bursts from distant worlds. Some were natural, but others were signs of life refugees perhaps, still struggling against forces unknown. Each signal brought hope and fear in equal measure. In the command deck, Aurum Era, the diplomatic officer, studied the data. She wondered what kind of civilization had sent the distress call, and what it had meant to survive this long. Her job was to understand, to communicate, but even she felt the weight of distance. Every minute spent traveling was time lost for those in danger. They are still out there, she whispered, almost to herself. Somewhere, the fleet entered a zone where the stars seemed to fade, replaced by a dark expanse that pulsed faintly. Wu ordered sensors to increase power. Energy signatures appeared, strange and complex. It was clear that this system had been lived in, but abandoned. Ships long gone, structures broken, satellites scattered in silence. EUN. Siok gathered his senior officers. "This is what we feared," he said. "The call came from here. We need to be ready for anything." The crew worked through the night. Arium Nari recalibrated engines, ensuring that the jump drives could handle sudden changes. Rin Yuna and other pilots ran simulations of potential encounters. Aurum Era prepared communication protocols, ready for both peace and negotiation. Every member of the crew knew that the unknown could be dangerous, but the mission required courage. As the fleet approached the source of the signal, small ships appeared on sensors. At first, they were hard to distinguish, mere shadows against the stars. Then, closer analysis revealed them as refugee craft, fragile and damaged. The sight brought relief and concern at the same time. The refugees were alive, but barely. "They need help now," Aurum Era said, her voice tense. "Not later, not tomorrow, now." Yoon Seok nodded. "Prepare medical teams. Prepare boarding parties. Make ready all defensive positions. We do not know who else is here." The fleet moved carefully, forming protective formations around the fragile refugees. Signals of distress and fear came through sensors. Children, families, and traders were packed into small ships, some barely functional. They were unarmed, terrified, and desperate for guidance. Captain Yoon Seok looked at the display, seeing the small ships blink in and out of sensor range. The enemy had been thorough. They had chased these people from world to world. Yet here they were, alive, still sending their plea. Wu adjusted fleet positions. "Keep shields up. Stay ready. They may think we are weak because we are far from home, but we are not." Hours passed in careful maneuvers. Rin Yuna flew close to one of the refugee ships, signaling with lights and voice. The humans, trained to be patient but ready, guided her craft between floating debris. The refugees responded with cautious hope, following the path set for them. It was delicate work. One mistake could destroy everything. "Medical teams to the first cluster," Yoon Seok ordered, "and maintain defensive perimeter. We do not know if the attackers are still in pursuit." Arium Nari monitored power distribution to ensure the fleet's shields would not fail. Systems hummed, lights flickered, but the fleet moved like a living organism. Each part relied on the other, each person on board contributing skill and focus. It was human adaptability at its best, simple and strong. Aurum Era finally opened communication channels with the refugee fleet. Her voice was calm, firm, and reassuring. "You are safe. We are here to help. Follow our guidance, and you will survive." The response was hesitant at first. They had not seen help without strings attached before. But gradually they followed, trusting the humans to lead them through the darkness. Seok allowed himself a small smile. For now, humanity had succeeded in what many thought impossible. They had reached those in need, alive, and ready to protect them. The journey had been long, the dangers great. But human courage and skill were proving stronger than the void itself. As the fleet held its position, sensors picked up distant movement, but this time it was not debris. Enemy ships were returning, confident that no one would dare challenge them so far from known space. The sight brought tension to the bridge, but also clarity. "Prepare for engagement," Yoon Seok said quietly. "We are here to defend, not to retreat." The crew moved swiftly, knowing the moment of truth was near. Humanity had crossed the unknown, reached out across the stars, and found lives in need. Now they would show that strength, skill, and courage were not bound by distance. They would face the enemy not as conquerors, but as protectors, and the battle that came next would define them and the lives they had vowed to save. The fleet reached the edge of the shattered system. Broken worlds floated in silence, their surfaces scarred by battles long past. Dust and debris drifted endlessly, creating a graveyard of what had once been thriving civilizations. The human crew stared at the ruins, knowing that this was where the distress call had begun. Captain Yoon Seok stood on the bridge of the horizon, scanning every signal. Sensors were picking up weak transmissions from small refugee ships scattered through the debris. The people inside were alive, but barely. Some ships had lost engines. Others had shields barely holding. Fear was thick, but hope was beginning to spread because of the humans that had arrived. "We need to secure them," Yoon Seok said. "Form protective formations around each group. No one gets through without our permission." Commander Woo Il gave orders to the fleet. Shields flared to life, surrounding the fragile crafts like a cage of light. The human fleet moved with precision, covering every approach and exit. Each ship in the formation communicated constantly, adjusting position and speed to match the slow and unpredictable movements of the refugee vessels. Pilot Rin Yuna led a small team to guide the weakest ships to safer areas. Her fighter weaved between debris, signaling with bright lights, showing the way. Families on the refugee ships watched in awe, some crying, others trembling, as humans guided them without asking for anything in return. Engineer Ariam Nari monitored the horizon systems as she made adjustments. Power was diverted to shields, engines, and weapons, all at the same time. Her hands moved quickly, checking meters and recalibrating circuits. "We can hold them," she said to herself, her voice calm even as alarms flickered across the panel. Warren Era worked on communications with the refugees. She translated the human voice into patterns the alien ships could understand, careful not to overwhelm them. "You are safe now," she said softly, her words reaching ears that had only known fear. Slowly, the refugees responded with signals of their own, tentative but full of gratitude. Then the enemy arrived. Small ships at first, scouting ahead. They moved fast, confident that they would meet no resistance. Sensors picked up their energy signatures, and the crew tensed. These were the ones who had caused the distress, the destroyers that had chased the refugees through worlds and stars. Yoon Seok's voice cut across the bridge. "Prepare for engagement. Do not fire until necessary. We protect first, fight only to defend." The enemy tested the perimeter, sending ships to probe the defenses. Each was met with careful force, human pilots using speed and strategy rather than sheer firepower. Rin Yuna led a group to intercept, moving like shadows between debris. The enemy was fast, but they were unprepared for humans who had trained for everything. On the horizon, Woo Il coordinated the fleet. "Keep them away from the refugees. Use every tactic we know. Adapt. Do not panic." Ariam Nari adjusted the jump drives, keeping them ready for emergency escapes or rapid repositioning. The engineers worked like a single mind, focused, calm, and precise. The first battle began with light exchanges. Laser beams cut through the dark, hitting enemy ships but avoiding the fragile refugees. Human fighters darted in and out of debris, confusing the enemy. Each move was deliberate, showing skill that could only come from years of training and adaptability. Borum Era sent messages to the refugee fleet. Stay close to our shields. Do not separate. Trust us. The aliens, exhausted and afraid, followed her guidance, slowly gaining confidence in the humans who had come so far to protect them. Hours passed in a tense dance of attack and defense. The enemy tried to overwhelm the humans with numbers, but strategy and coordination won over. Each human ship moved in unison, covering gaps, blocking paths, and striking precisely where it mattered. RI and Una led a daring maneuver, drawing several enemy fighters away from the refugee ships. She dodged and weaved, hitting enemy engines and disabling their weapons. The fleet responded quickly, reinforcing her moves and maintaining pressure on the attackers. Yoon Seok watched the battle unfold on the main display. "This is why we train," he said. "This is why we endure. Not for glory, but to save those who cannot save themselves." As the enemy began to realize that humans fought differently, with adaptability and will rather than raw power, they hesitated. Confusion spread through their ranks. Ships collided, engines failed, and coordination broke down. Humanity's strength was not just in weapons, it was in courage, planning, and the refusal to abandon anyone in need. The battle reached its climax when the enemy launched a large strike at the central refugee cluster. Rin Yuna and her team intercepted, using tactics that combined speed, precision, and intuition. Each move was calculated, designed to protect without unnecessary destruction. The enemy faltered, then retreated as the humans held their ground. Finally, silence returned. The refugee ships were safe for now. Humans had proven that they could stand in the darkest and most dangerous regions of space, protect the helpless, and fight with honor. Captain Yoon Seok walked the bridge, nodding at his officers. "We did what we came to do. The refugees are safe, the enemy is gone, and humanity has made its mark. But this is only the beginning. We must stay vigilant." Borum Era watched the signals from the refugees, now more steady and confident. Their small movements of gratitude and relief told a story words could not. Humans had arrived when no one else could. Humans had chosen to act. Ariam Nari leaned against her station, exhausted but satisfied. The engines hummed smoothly, the jump drives ready for the next move. Her team had kept the fleet alive, proving once again that human skill and determination could survive any challenge. Rin Yuna looked at the stars through her cockpit window. They were no longer just distant points of light. They were markers of hope, of life saved and battles fought. She smiled, knowing that the humans had shown what they were capable of. Commander Wu Il addressed the bridge. "We stay in position until all refugees are secure. Then we regroup and plan our next move. We have shown strength, but this fight is far from over." Yoon Seok nodded. "We fight not for conquest, not for power, but for the right to stand with those who cannot stand alone. That is humanity's true strength." The fleet held its position, protecting the fragile lives that had called for help. For the first time, the refugees could hope. For the first time, they could believe that someone would not abandon them. And for humanity, they had proven that their courage, skill, and will could reach across the stars to make a difference. The galaxy had seen what Earth's war fleet could do, and it was only the beginning. The enemy retreated into the darkness, but the fleet did not relax. Captain Yoon Seok knew that they could return, stronger and more desperate. Humanity had shown courage, but the battle was far from over. Every officer understood the stakes. Every crew member remained alert, The Horizon's bridge was a hive of controlled activity. Commander Wu Il moved among the stations, checking sensor readings, shield integrity, and the positions of both refugee and human ships. Communication channels were open to relay updates from every corner of the fleet. The calm efficiency spoke of years of training and preparation. Pilot Rin Yuna took a moment to steady her breathing. Her fighter had dodged countless attacks, shielded the refugees, and executed maneuvers that would have seemed impossible to anyone watching from Earth. She felt the strain in her muscles, but also the pride in what humans could accomplish. The enemy had underestimated them, and that mistake had cost them dearly. Engineer Ariam Nari continued to monitor the engines and jump drives. She adjusted power levels to compensate for shield use and damage from the recent engagement. Sparks occasionally flew from panels as the systems worked at their limits, but Ariam's hands moved with precision, keeping the ship alive and ready. "We are holding," she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. Oram Era sent messages to the refugee fleet, her voice calm and reassuring. "You are safe under our protection. Do not fear the enemy. Follow our guidance, and you will survive." The refugees responded cautiously at first, but slowly trust began to grow. The humans had shown that they would fight without expecting anything in return. As night passed in the void of space, the enemy returned with greater numbers. They had learned from their first engagement, but humanity had also adapted. Sensors picked up the approaching fleet, and the crew prepared for the confrontation that would define this system. "Positions," Yun Seok commanded. "Defensive formation, protect the refugees at all costs. Do not let them approach." The enemy attacked with aggressive precision, expecting fear and hesitation. They were met with calm efficiency. Shields flared, energy beams deflected, and human pilots executed maneuvers that caught the enemy off guard. It was not just skill that won battles, but the refusal to surrender. Rin Yuna led a squadron in a series of daring strikes, targeting the engines and weapons of the enemy ships. Her team moved as one, striking fast and retreating before retaliation could occur. Each hit was precise, each movement calculated. The enemy began to falter, their confidence shaking. On the horizon, Wu Il coordinated the entire fleet. "Keep them away from the refugees. Use everything we have. Adapt quickly. They do not know what we are capable of." Engineer Ariam Nari diverted power to shields and weapons, keeping energy levels balanced for maximum efficiency. The jump drives were ready, a potential escape if needed, but every human on board hoped it would not come to that. They wanted to fight, to show strength, and to protect those who could not protect themselves. The battle intensified. Enemy ships attempted boarding actions, hoping to disable human vessels from within. Ground forces prepared for this eventuality, led by Major Gun Tae, who directed teams with calm authority. Barricades and automated defenses held the enemy at bay, showing the discipline and training of humanity in action. The enemy launched a final strike at the refugee cluster. Rin Yuna and her squad intercepted, moving with a combination of speed, skill, and intuition. The humans struck where it mattered, disabling weapons and engines while avoiding civilian casualties. The enemy faltered, and their formations began to break apart. Captain Yoon Seok issued the final commands. "Press forward. Protect the refugees. Do not let them retreat. This ends now." The fleet surged, pushing the enemy back into the darkness from which they came. Each maneuver demonstrated the ingenuity and courage of humanity. The enemy could not anticipate the adaptability, coordination, and relentless will that humans brought to the fight. As the dust of battle settled, silence returned to the system. The refugees were safe, their ships intact, and their trust in humanity solidifying. The human fleet had proven that they could fight not for conquest or revenge, but for the protection of others. It was a lesson that would echo across the stars. Captain Yoon Seok moved across the bridge, nodding at his officers. "We have done what we came to do. The refugees are safe. The enemy is retreating. Humanity has shown its strength." Aurum Ara monitored communications from the refugee fleet, noting their relief and gratitude. Even in the simplest gestures, humans had made an impact. Trust and hope had been restored by the courage and skill of the fleet engineer. Ariam Nari checked the systems one last time before allowing herself to breathe. The jump drives, shields, and engines had held under extreme conditions. The crew had adapted and survived, proving that human ingenuity could overcome any challenge. Pilot Rin Yuna looked at the stars, thinking of the journey that had brought them here. She had flown through unknown space, dodged attacks, and guided those who could not save themselves. The experience had tested her, but it had also shown the best of humanity. Courage, skill, and determination were not just words. They were the actions that defined them. Commander Wu Il addressed the bridge. "We maintain position until all refugees are fully secured. Then we regroup. Today, humanity has proven itself. But tomorrow, we remain vigilant." Captain Yoon Seok nodded. "We fight not for power, not for conquest, but for the right to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is humanity's true strength." The fleet remained in formation, guarding the fragile lives that had called for help. Humans had crossed the unknown, faced the enemy, and emerged victorious. The galaxy had witnessed Earth's war fleet in action, and humanity had shown what it could do when courage, skill, and compassion were combined. The battle was over, but the story of humanity's strength was only beginning. The enemy fleet had been driven away, their attacks repelled, and the refugees were finally safe. The human fleet maintained position, ensuring that no further danger would reach the fragile ships. Captain Yoon Seok walked the bridge of the horizon, observing the quiet coordination of his crew. Every face was tense but relieved. They had achieved what many thought impossible. Commander Wu Il moved among the stations, checking systems and confirming positions. Sensors continued to scan for any signs of returning enemy ships, but none appeared. The fleet had proven its strength, but vigilance was still necessary. Humanity had come far, and the responsibility of protecting the vulnerable had only just begun. Pilot Rin Yuna watched the refugee fleet from her cockpit. The small ships moved slowly but steadily, guided by human signals and protected by shields. Children and families, traders and travelers were finally beginning to feel safe. She thought of how far they had traveled, how many dangers they had faced, and how human courage had made the difference. Engineer Ariam Nari checked the horizon's engines and shields, ensuring that all systems were stable. Sparks from the earlier battles had been repaired, and the ship hummed with steady power. "We held," she said quietly. "We survived." Her voice carried pride as well as relief. The fleet's performance was a testament to human skill, determination, and adaptability. Aurum Era continued communicating with the refugees, translating their signals into words they could understand. Her voice was calm and steady. "You are safe. Humanity is here to protect you. Follow our guidance, and we will keep you alive." The refugees responded with gestures of gratitude, their fear slowly giving way to hope. They had never experienced such selfless protection before, and it changed them. Admiral Sung Du observed the scene from a distant command tower. The human fleet had answered a call that had waited centuries, and the galaxy had witnessed the result. Humans did not act for glory or profit, but for the protection of those in need. That choice, simple yet powerful, defined them more than any weapon or ship. The refugees began to gather in safer regions of the system. Damaged ships were repaired under human guidance, and medical teams tended to the injured. Families reunited, and hope spread among the survivors. For the first time in years, They felt that the future might be secure. Humanity had shown that courage and skill could cross the stars and answer a call for help. Captain Yoon Seok walked among the crew, offering quiet words of encouragement and pride. "We have done what we came to do," he said. "But remember, this is only the beginning. We must always be ready to act, to protect, and to stand when others cannot." Commander Woo Il addressed the fleet. "Hold position until all refugees are secure. Maintain vigilance. The galaxy has seen what humans can do, but we must never forget our purpose, to defend those who cannot defend themselves." Rin Yuna looked out at the stars, thinking of the journey that had brought them here. She had flown through unknown space, faced enemy attacks, and guided the helpless to safety. Her heart swelled with pride. Humanity had shown that courage, skill, and determination could overcome fear and darkness. Engineer Ariam Nari monitored the horizon systems one last time before allowing herself to relax. Every engine, shield, and weapon system had performed under extreme conditions. The fleet had adapted, survived, and triumphed. It was a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. Simple yet powerful, Orem Ira continued communicating with the refugee fleet, guiding them safely through the system. Slowly, trust grew. The survivors learned that humans fought not for conquest, not for power, but for the right to protect the vulnerable. That realization changed them, and it changed the galaxy's view of humanity. As the fleet prepared to leave the system, Captain Yoon Seok gathered his senior officers. "We have answered the call," he said. "We have proven our strength, our courage, and our will. Let this day be remembered, not for the battle, but for what we chose to do. We chose to act, to protect, and to stand when others could not." The refugee fleet continued to move to safer regions, guided and protected by humans. Their relief and gratitude were evident in every gesture, every signal, every word. Humanity had earned their trust, and in doing so, had earned a new reputation across the stars. Admiral Sung-du reflected on the mission from his observation point. Earth's war fleet had not only fought a battle, but had made a statement. The galaxy had seen what humans could do when they acted with courage, skill, and compassion. The choice to answer a call for help had defined humanity more than any weapon ever could. The Horizon and the rest of the fleet began their journey, back toward known space. The stars stretched endlessly before them, but the knowledge of what they had accomplished filled the crew with pride. They had faced the unknown, protected the helpless, and emerged victorious. Humanity had answered a call that waited centuries, and in doing so, had shown the galaxy their true strength. Captain Yoon Seok stood on the bridge one last time, looking at the fleet, the refugee ships, and the stars beyond. "We fight not for power, not for conquest, but for the right to stand with those who cannot stand alone. That is humanity's greatest strength." The fleet moved steadily through the void, guardians of the vulnerable, symbols of hope, and living proof that courage and determination could cross the stars. Humanity had answered a call, and the story of that day would be remembered across the galaxy for generations to come.